Hi guys! For this week's discussion post, the question was, describe our understanding of how formative evaluation procedures are based on continuous and precise measurements of target behaviors. Also explain why such procedures are needed for studying and adjusting interventions. Now, just to backtrack a bit of something that we learned last week's reading in Chapter 5 and this week's reading in Chapter 6, just a slight comparison between summative and formative assessments or evaluations. Summative refers to assessments that do not happen frequently. They usually happen 1 to 3 times a year. They only provide progress at a certain point in time, and they're a measurement of teaching. They're a measurement that happens after teaching and learning has been done. However, formative assessment is something that we should more strive forward for when dealing with targeted behaviors, because formative assessments occur more frequently, as they're done in a more frequent basis, on a more consistent basis, and they're a measurement that actually happens while the teaching and the learning process is going on. And that's why it provides an opportunity for the teacher to make, I would say, immediate as well as effective procedures, interventions, and activities for students. And the core of formative evaluation procedures is that they reduce the chances that students will be subjected to ineffective as well as unnecessary interventions. Now, in addition, something that I was thinking about how formative assessments are so crucial to evaluating targeted behaviors is, one, they actually provide you with information about who is ready. Like, let's say if you're in a classroom with students, it gives you a clear idea of, one, who has developed the skills early on and who hasn't. So, for instance, a student might develop, in a formative assessment, the student might develop a skill you're able to identify within 3 weeks. But then with the summative assessment, you could only see that the student was able to develop that skill at the end. So, if you identify with the formative assessment, when the student is identified that he has developed the skill early on, you could push that student to greater limits. Two, it definitely provides information. Formative assessments provide information on who is profiting from the instruction and who's not. Especially for students that are not, it definitely, when you're able to identify that with, proper graphs and charts, you're able to pick up on what instructional input is being technically wasted because the students are not being receptive to it. And of course, it definitely, with the formative assessments, I would say, provide you with information on much needed adjustments for your day-to-day basis, for your daily instruction. I liked on page, according to Karen Nelson, there was a quote that really caught my attention, and it was, "The danger of being driven by summative evaluation in the absence of formative evaluation procedures is that the gap will widen between empirically validated procedures and actually classroom practices." And so I think that sums up with why formative evaluations are so necessary. Now, in the reading, there were 3 basic formative evaluation procedures that were discussed. First one, it was the use of visual display of student performance, specifically through graphs and charts. And graphs and charts, they definitely are, I would probably say, provide you with a rapid as well as an efficient way. They provide you with a rapid and efficient analysis of the student behavior, is what I'm trying to say. There was it also summed up on page 168, according to Karen Nelson. It describes 3 goals of graphs and charts. And the first one is that they summarize data in a convenient manner to display certain behavioral trends. 2, they communicate information that is helpful in evaluating the effects of the intervention. And 3rd, they provide reinforcement/feedback to persons involved with the intervention. So that's why they're crucial in the formative. It's a procedure that is very effective. It's a type of procedure that's effective in formative evaluations. The second formative evaluation procedure type is data-based decision making. And what that essentially is that it's comparing student performance or progress to a desired level as well as making adjustments to that. And this type of procedure focuses on the functional relationships between environmental variables and the target behavior being measured. So technically, so this approach systematically makes environmental adjustments, like changing one variable at a time, to address the evaluation of the targeted behavior. And one other term that stood out so much within the reading, but that is so crucial to this procedure, is the baseline data. Evidently, and what it is that it's kind of the pre-intervention data. It's in scientific terms, it's kind of like if you have a control group and a variable group, it's like the control group by which you compare everything to when you see the effects of something that you do in a scientific experiment on your variable group. And why this is so crucial is because it provides two functions. It provides a descriptive function, meaning that it provides you a description on the current levels and trends in the targeted behavior, but as well it provides a predicative function, meaning that it kind of predicts the student's level of performance in the long run if the intervention is not implemented. And this leads me to the last and final type of formative evaluation procedure, and that's a single subject research design. And what that is that it focuses on identifying and isolating specific variables that have a direct cause and effect relationship with the target behavior. And the reading discussed 4 approaches to doing so, such as the withdrawal and the reversal design, the multiple baseline design, as well as the changing criterion and the alternating treatments design. So there was just a lot of new information in this week's reading about formative evaluation procedures. On page 180, according to Karen Nelson, there was it was a figure 6.12, that illustrates different intervention trends and their interpretation. As I was looking at the different graphs displayed, after some deep thought, they definitely started to make sense. But it took me a while to understand, this diagram falls into displaying an effective program. This one's ineffective. And at times, I felt like I didn't understand why one diagram represents an ineffective program or vice versa. And I honestly felt intimidated because sooner or later, we will definitely be doing more of this stuff when we get to schools. And I understand that we're still kind of in the beginning stage of learning about collecting data and analyzing data on behaviors and interventions. But I was wondering, did any of you feel maybe overwhelmed or intimidated by the terminology of the graphs and charts of collecting that data? I would like to hear your insight. It would be great if I wasn't the only one in this boat, kind of having that feeling. If you guys have any questions or concerns or want clarifications about what I discussed, please feel free to comment, and I will definitely surely do my best to get back to you. Thank you.